Back to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're honored to be joined with our next guest who's in her home studio. I'm in mine because we want to make sure that everyone is safe and healthy. We have Diane Canada. She's an author and a speaker, and we'll talk about it later, but she's also the co-creator of the Tennessee Entrepreneur Initiative. So Diane, how are you doing?
I am so good. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate having me on.
Absolutely. So we get to talk all about you being an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker. Let's start though, because you have a cool story of being an entrepreneur yourself. And so you had a business, you were in the medical side, staffing side. And then obviously in 2008, when the economy crashed, a lot of pivots, but then you went back to some singer-songwriter roots. So give us a little bit of that story of being an entrepreneur, managing through disruption, and then kind of what led you to where we are today.
Yes, absolutely. Well, my story is a story of resiliency that if I had to sum up my whole life, all the way through my private personal life leading up to my business career, and then certainly navigating the choppy high seas, of the business world. So yeah, I had benefited from an apprenticeship early on. 20s. I was working as a manager for a very high-end dental practice in Atlanta, and we had consultants that would come in every year, and they would kind of spit, shine, and polish us. And the last one that came in, I was with them almost 5 years. They came in and recruited me, actually, and with my doctor's full blessing, I went into an apprenticeship with one of the top consulting firms. It was such a blessing. I was so unqualified. I'm someone without a college degree, and my college trajectory was very much interrupted early on. And so, I've just benefited from that. And then going into the consulting world, what you're basically doing is you're walking alongside owners who are in really desperate situations, and you're coming in and you're offering to hold their hand and say, I've got you. I'm not going to let you drown today. And we're going to walk them through a series of steps to kind of pull them out of those choppy waters, kind of bring them to safety. And so I learned, just from her, and then from doing that myself from my own firm, how to kind of get your emotions under control when you're in those really difficult situations, and how to focus on the priorities and how to let the rest go. And so, yes, when I opened my own firm and I had experienced the '08 recession, it was absolutely the choppiest waters I think I'd ever been in. But I had all that great training. And sometimes it's about pulling a business out of it, and sometimes it's about knowing when to let go. And for me, after a lot of prayer and a lot of intentional contemplation, for me, I saw that God was bringing that part of my story to an end because he wanted to do something new. And once I really saw that, then I started cooperating with the process. And I guess I'd been simultaneously groomed as a singer-songwriter in Atlanta when I was consulting. For years, I had been groomed by professional management and producers. And so when that part of my story ended and I started seeing God bringing the music back in, it's always for me been this pendulum swing between music and consulting. And I thought, Lord, what are you doing? I thought we were kind of done with that, and I had accepted it. But when he wanted to bring it back again, I just started getting into some heavy prayer, making sure I was hearing him right. And he did. And that turned into a 7-year adventure of a Bluebird type show on steroids, I call it. We would go into fairy tale settings and present this candlelight dinner concert series, which later evolved into a television show. Yeah. And it was syndicating for a couple of years. We had great success with the popularity of that show. So it gave me time, and I thought, what do I want to do next? And that's kind of started the journey to where I am now.
Give us, before we talk about the journey where you are now, give us one favorite just memory out of the TV show experience in terms of just someone you got to meet, or just a crazy story or a bucket list item. Give me one fun story.
Sure. Well, the one that comes to mind first is from time to time, I would have celebrities that, the household names that would call me, and they would want to be a part of the show. And we had Linda Davis on the show one time, and most people know her from the big famous Reba duet. And we were in the dressing room, we were talking everything before the show. She never mentioned that she wanted to do the duet, And so I thought, well, if she wanted to do it, we would rehearse it a little, we would practice, but she didn't. And at the end of the show, we're in a theater And her very last song of the night, she's like, come on, Diane, let's do the duet. And I'm like, I remember saying to the audience, nobody better put this on YouTube, but somebody recorded it and somebody did. And now I'm glad. It's a great memory to look back on.
Nice. So talk about this journey, because you do have a book out, and you also too have Ladylike Leaders. And so you have a lot of empowerment and enrichment and just sharing of great content. So dive into that world.
Thank you. Well, I will tell you that all of it is founded in my faith. Even moments like that, what I just shared, it's really just about trusting that, God's got your back in spontaneous situations. And again, I mentioned that my story is about resiliency. So when I had the idea to write a book, of course, we all have very full lives. There's a lot of things we could write about, but I started drilling it down and coming back to that word over and over again. And, the title of the book is Lady Up and Don't Quit. And it's about those rocky moments where you just don't feel like you can take another punch, but somehow you pull that last, breath out of you, stand back up again. And it's not about how many times we get knocked down in life. It's about how many times can we get back up.
Absolutely.
And so that's my passion. That's what I love to teach women, people, but women in particular are my sweet spot. Women show up very differently in the world, obviously, than men do. We battle with a lot of inner noise, a lot of fear and insecurity, imposter syndrome I talk about a lot. Who am I to be doing this? And again, someone without a college degree, I battled that for a long time. Who am I to be telling the most educated doctors on the planet how to run their businesses? Who am I to be sitting in a round with people like Linda Davis and Richie McDonald, and I don't even have a hit song yet? All of those things that we torture ourselves with. I have learned through my faith to relax about that and to understand our value comes from God. It does not come from what we do. And so finding that strength and that endurance and that creativity and that peace inside all comes from Him. And so I'm trying to just pass that along to women now. And it's my joy to do that.
What is a favorite, or, when it comes to like the tip side of things, a starting point? Because I think about all the things where study after study says that women who collaborate together are so much more powerful. And yet many times it's more of a competition. And so trying to break down that competitiveness and say, if we collaborate, we can get so much further together. And that support network really does build confidence and allows you to propel yourself in a whole new direction. Where do you like to start? So in other words, as you're speaking and talking to people, where do you like to start, and where do you like to have them start?
I like to really point them toward the fact that when it comes to women, we really are twofold beings. We do have this collaborative, supportive nature, which is really how we're wired. But then there's this catty kind of competitive nature also that women have. And what I try to help them understand is where that comes from, like what that's rooted in. And what it's rooted in is us. It's rooted in all of that fear and insecurity. Are we measuring up? Are we as far ahead as she is? And it's because we want to be seen as peers. We want to be respected. We want to push ourselves. And so if we can learn to have compassion with each other rather than that competitive spirit, I think that has to be rooted in the nature of how we're wired. We've got to understand ourselves first and understand what's driving that behavior. And then we can start to overcome it and relax and almost laugh about it. Get tickled by it and say, okay, you're just in your head, or you're just, and we can have a lot more grace with each other.
Yeah. Building the self-awareness is very critical.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about switching over, but the Tennessee Entrepreneur Initiative, obviously when you talk about what's near and dear to your heart, helping women, helping individuals overall, but also to empowerment and entrepreneurship and helping people start their businesses and fulfill their dreams. Give us a little bit of a teaser for that side of things.
Yes, something that breaks my heart, having been a consultant for so many years and sitting beside owners, it's kind of like parenting. Nothing can quite prepare you for opening a business or running a business until you do it. You don't, you can read all the parenting books in the world, but until that child of yours is in your arms, it's a completely different experience. It's just like that for ownership. So first, I'd like to say that anybody who's never done it, who's never jumped out on that limb, has no, in my opinion, authority to give advice or opinions around it, because it's kind of like, again, like parenting. You don't want somebody telling you how to raise your child who's never had one. And so it's hard. It is so very, very hard. And most small businesses can't qualify for loans like corporations can. It's very difficult to get loans. So a lot of them have their personal assets attached, their equity lines on their homes, things like that. And so their family's livelihood or their retirement income, all of that is on the line with this business. And the stats tell us, depending on the industry, that at least 40% of them are going to fail in their first year, and over 50% of them are going to fail within the first 5. And I personally get very, very frustrated because I feel like people don't understand why that really is. They'll say, oh, it's a cash flow issue. Well, yes, it's a cash flow issue, but what preceded that? There's not a lot of room for failure when someone's got a limited amount of money and everything's riding on it. They don't know who to trust. They don't know, all these vendors descend on them in their minds like vultures. And they're all telling them, you need my product, you need my service, you'll never survive without our service. Well, they don't know. And if they make a bad judgment call there and it costs them 10 grand, 20 grand, they don't have the ability to recover like larger businesses do. And so they either tend to hoard their money and not do anything, or they tend to spend too quickly. And this is what's preceding the cash flow issue, what I've seen. So we've got to get of the root. We got to, again, back to the root of how are you making these decisions? Why are you failing? And it doesn't have to be that way. So I feel like if they have someone who can guide them through the minefield, guide them and say, here's where the pitfalls are. And yes, we're going to do this collaboratively because you have a purpose, you have a vision, all that. We're not trying to disrupt that. We want you to show up and do what you're here to do. But here's where the big mines are, here's the minefield. We're going to guide you around that. So my dad used to say, Diane, don't reinvent the wheel, and we can learn from experience, but we can benefit from other people's experience. I used to tell people as a consultant, you're going to spend this money one way or the other. You're either going to spend it in trial and error, or you're going to spend it by bringing in a professional to walk alongside of you. You choose.
Yeah.
One way's painful, one way's empowering. You choose.
It's a good way to look at it.
TI was really an idea to help people, not hit the landmines.
What's one thing when you look at, what you hope to accomplish with TEI and you being a speaker and the book, give me one thing that you hope in the big scheme of things that you're able to accomplish.
Help less business owners fail. That's help them not quit and help them not fail. That's my whole gig.
Nice.
That's my mission in life.
When you look at next steps, and obviously everything is in a period of disruption, but when you look at events, I know that there was a kickoff event, so you've had some things there, but when things normalize, give us an idea of ways to plug in. Obviously with your book, that's one way, but what are some ways that we can plug in and take advantage of your expertise?
Well, thank you. Well, I do get offers to speak for organizations. I especially love speaking for women's organizations. That's, again, my sweet spot. So I would love to get calls. I would love to be able to empower, and enrich as many women as I can. My time's going to be a little limited coming into the next year. I've got a different focus at the moment, but I definitely want to point as many people as I can toward the Tennessee Entrepreneur Initiative. This is what I intentionally set up in the background to be a resource for people, since I can no longer sit beside them and hold their hand. I didn't want to just abandon that passion of mine. And so I've been working with my team out of New York to build this so that I know those people, those women and those business owners are going to be well taken care of in my absence, outside of speaking opportunities or the book. So I would definitely point them toward the Tennessee Entrepreneur Initiative to get that care and that hand-holding that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. So go ahead and wrap up and talk about website, social media. What are the ways to, one, get connected in on that side, but also with you directly as well?
Sure. So ladylikeleaders.com is my site. So that's where everyone can find the book and opportunities to book me to speak. And I appreciate the plug on that. And then if corporations or philanthropies want to help our efforts to help entrepreneurs, or even entrepreneurs want to go in and benefit from this initiative, then it's just the it's Tennessee Entrepreneur Initiative.com.
Well, Diane Canada, thank you for all you do. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy. I enjoyed it.